Hey everyone, it is Rosemary Jane, and I'm here with you today. We are going to do our session on augmenting reality for blended and remote learning. And I do have to tell you that we are going to do some things that we have not done at all during COVID-19 during this time. So for me, this is a little bit of a getting back to what really most excites me in education and technology, the transformational aspects and what we can do with learning opportunities. So we're going to be looking at augmenting reality for blended and remote learning. And in that, we're going to look at how to, so augmenting is adding another layer, enhancing, and adding to. We're going to be looking at augmented and virtual applications that have been used in the district. Some of the slides in this presentation are from a prior presentation, literally the week before COVID. So I believe it was that last Thursday before we all went home the following Monday. I think that Friday was our last official day. So that Thursday morning, I presented this to our partners with our Hamilton County ESC and was showing them some of the things we're doing. Well, we went into COVID and we had to sort of redefine what we were doing, and we had to get back to some basics. I've done a lot of Schoology training in PDs, and I will actually be showing a little bit of how to integrate this into Schoology as well. Reminder that Schoology is your learning management system. You can link anything you need in Schoology. Yeah, the agenda will be shared at the end. It actually says that at the bottom, so I will share that. There's some things that I'm gonna, as I said, this is gonna be very different than what we have done in the past. So we're gonna get away from some of the basics, and we're gonna go into some of the innovative things that people have done in the district, as well as some things that we can do into the future. So so I've got some things to share with you in these slides. I also am going to point out that very often I have lots of tabs open. This is actually all queued up for this session, and I've got a nice little collection on a one tab that I'm going to share with you later. This is all information for today's session, so I'm going to give you a lot. This may feel like a bit of a drink from a fire hose. I don't expect you to necessarily follow along and click with me. I'd rather you sort of take in a little bit of what's possible, and then I'll have some Q&A time at the end. So we're going to get started with this now. I do want to note that if you have questions as I'm going, since I do not have a chat moderator, please type your questions here in the chat, and then I will get to those as I can. I hear it ding, and then I might round out a thought or finish out a thought before I hop back, but that's where your questions will go. All right, so as we get started, I did post the reminder about this today. I did see that it was actually only on our LTT calendar and not on the teaching and learning calendar. So I apologize about that. I added it very late today, but it has been on the LTT calendar since last week. So, so if you just got the notice on curriculum and instruction, I apologize that for some reason it wasn't duplicated over. All right, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to close tabs out as we go. So I'm going to start off by something that may have piqued some of your interest in our statements for the Stage 2 Distinguished Educator. If you're not there yet, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. The only thing you're going to have right now is a preview on one of the statements. And it's this one here. I create virtual spaces to show off exemplary student work, progress, and monitor feedback from peers within this space. Some of you may have thought that you need to go and create a different space. I want to make sure that before I dive into all of these different things we can do, we remember that our learning management system is where we should be hubbing or housing all of our online content. So anything that you are using that is an external tool or a different website, you still want to link and give context to that in your Schoology course. I just did a session on that recently. So I do want to point out the things I'm going to show you today. Everything I'm going to show you, you can still give context and hub it in your Schoology course. And I'm going to show you one little example that's already built in there that you may not be aware of. So again, around this practice statement of I create virtual spaces to show off exemplary student work and progress and monitor feedback from peers within the space. You may not have been aware that there is in your courses the ability to add a media album. And I shared that in one of my recent sessions, but you can add a media album And then I do want to just point out that in this media album, you can set the media album for students to be able to add their own items to it and comment on one another's. So I've got this sample media album. I put a picture of Dr. Ross Turpo, our Woodford principal, and I can add media here. I want to show you on the settings, edit media. Sorry, back to album. When I'm setting up my media album, edit info, here we go. When I'm setting up my media album, it actually defaults to instructors and students can add media. This can be photos or videos. So just keep that in mind that your students can add photos or videos. So that is a preset. You would actually have to turn it off if you don't want your students to contribute. So think of this as a space where some of the things that I'm going to show and share with you today could go right in Schoology, right inside of Media Album. I also do want to point out that in addition to a media album, you could have them participate in a discussion where they attach links to different things. They could link to when they're typing. They could link to something that they're going to create in one of the applications I'm going to show you today. They can do a quick audio and video sharing what they have, what they've done, what they've created. They can also attach files. And so attaching files is going to be something we're going to look at, all file types, but there are certain files that they can download and upload there as well. So you could do that as a discussion. It could be an assignment. So this virtual space, that is in our Schoology course. The capability is already there. But today I'm talking about a different kind of virtual or augmented. I'm talking about the kind that interacts with our reality. So virtual learning is fully immersive, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit today, but I'm really going to focus on the augmented reality part of this for blended and remote learning. So I'm going to click through, and my hope is that I can just keep it in this size screen. So I hope this is a good enough view for you. Keep in mind, keep it on spotlight or maybe even full screen if you need to see it. If anybody's having trouble seeing, just go ahead and drop something in the chat so I know. So I'm going to skip over this. Today we'll explore. I'm not going to go through and read this to you all together, but this is a big shift for me because usually the work that I'm doing and sharing with you, I'm a very learn by doing person, and I'm usually demonstrating. I do have a pretty lengthy slide deck, and we're going to go through that today. So we're going to look at ways to begin with creation of augmented learning experiences for students. I'm going to show you some incredible teachers who've done some things with both augmented and virtual reality and some transformational ways that students can create. So we're also going to look at some things to follow, and I've got all these tabs queued up. We're going to go through those shortly. So this is getting a little bit back to the heart and my why of what I do. I was a full-time, self-contained early childhood teacher, kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. And I did that for 10 years, and I loved my students, and I thought nothing could ever take me out of the classroom. But as I finished my work in my master's in K-12 tech-enhanced learning, and I learned about some of the possibilities that there were to really enhance the learning experience, this opportunity came up at the district, and I made the heartbreaking decision to leave my students, but to come and do this work. But the reason that I do this is because the types of things that I usually focus on and do in my job prior to COVID were all about transforming the way that students learn. I do support the everyday things like, getting your students to word process, type up a paper. Those are important things. But I'm really inspired and fired up by the things that we can do that change the learning experience drastically. So I really believe that nothing in life can substitute experience. But we know that our students are not all from a location, or do not all have the opportunities to go out and do. And so adding in layers of augmented and virtual learning experiences is a way that those experiences can come to life. I'm sure many of you are very familiar with VR headsets, and you may have even seen the orange and white ones in the district. We're not going to get as heavily into that, but virtual reality has been coming into the educational space for a couple years now. It really kind of took off a little bit more at Cincinnati Public in the year past, but this is actually our third real year of implementing virtual reality for learning. But even within a virtual headset, there's options for augmented reality, which do not require headsets, do not require a student to wear something. And those are AR apps. And we're going to be looking at some of those apps that you can use. But essentially in this slide, what you can see is by holding up a mobile device, whether that's a phone or a tablet, or very often on a PC, there can be these enhanced layered ways of doing it. You may have even seen Google AR, where you can, through your phone, you can toss a lion into your living room or a snake. There's all sorts of ways that you can augment the reality around you. So in these are academic examples where a physical globe, if you hold up the phone, you can, it will overlay the types of dinosaurs that could be found in that region of that part of the globe. In another one, a book could have a scene that if you hold up the app, the birds are going to appear to fly out from the book. And so you can see and imagine all sorts of ways that this could be used to make an experience, whether it's in the classroom face-to-face or learning from home, more engaging and exciting for students. So the connection to our personal experiences, I think is a perfect place to leverage. And so we want to give our students more opportunities to have personal experiences that take them outside of their everyday world. One of those that I had in the past year was actually, I had the opportunity to visit India. Most of our students and most people I know aren't going to visit India. But one way that I experienced sort of pre-visiting India was through researching on the web. And then I did explore it in a virtual pair of goggles. I also had apps on my phone where I could explore the map and I could see where I was going to go. So connecting ourselves with different cultures, different parts of the world, we can bring those experiences right here into our own homes without having to make a trip across the world. Our students at, this is a preschool class, Dara Stinson's class at John P. Parker Elementary, and this is obviously pre-COVID. Students were all in class and they actually wore headsets and they traveled to the Amazon. They were learning all about different parts of the world as part of their school focus. And students as young as 3 years old with the proper guidance and best practices for early learning experiences can really enjoy experiences in a fully immersive or in that just handheld through a tablet or mobile phone. All right, that was part of John P. Parker's global climate change project. There was this connection of, well, how much more would our 5th grade students who are researching these places be engaged if ever since they were 3, 4, or 5 years old, they've been virtually visiting these places. So these are just a few things already going on in Cincinnati Public Schools and things that we hope to extend and enhance as we continue through this blended learning environment that we'll be starting up this school year. All right, so students can create all different types of experiences. One of those is giving them an opportunity to create their own playlist. And a playlist would just be a list of types of experiences they want to have. Now that could be locations that they want to go, or that could be experiences they want to see. In a biology class, for example, we don't have to do everything at the primary level, certainly not. In a biology class, students could have a list of parts of the body they're going to explore. In a history class, students could have a list of types of places or periods in history they want to visit. And so they can have the opportunity to build those lists. We don't have to provide everything for them. What we can do is give them the tools to access it. Going all the way down to the youngest grades, there is an application called Quiver version. And that one I want to share with you now. My tabs are slightly out of order. Here we go. Here's the Quiver version app. And so this is actually a coloring app that can make whatever the students are working on come to life. They've got some preloaded sheets. So you can look at ways that this might connect with what they're reading about in their science class and find a sheet on that, or what, there's really not a lot of limits there. You can explore their libraries. They do have the education portal coming soon. And in case you're wondering, Quiver version is already district approved. So if you are making a little note, one AR app that you could begin with that does not require headsets or extra equipment is Quiver version. All right. Let's look at the next example. How about taking your students someplace? Another app that does not require headsets but can be added to headsets is Tour Creator by Google. Take a look at Tour Creator. You can get started and you sign into this with your Google account. And I went over to the templates. When you first sign in, you either can build your own new tour or you can use their existing templates, and you can explore their template library. You can scroll through them, or you can search the templates as well. So it gives you an example to see what's possible, but you can either build for your students a tour that you can send them on in an augmented or virtual way, or you can empower them with the ability to build their own tours, depending on their age level. But you can see there's really no limit as to what you can, what content area, what type of experiences they have. I can see this relating well to narrative writing. I can see this relating well to history, science. So the limitations, there's no limits on what you can do with this. And that was through Tour Creator. So again, we're looking at students having some creation ability or teachers using these to provide enriched, enhanced experiences. And we started with creation tools. We looked at Quiver version, which is coloring, but it just kind of comes to life for the student. Tour Creator, which I just walked you through some of those. And then there's another one called Metaverse. Now this one is not yet district approved. So just want to remind you that you would need to go to the approved technology list. You would need to search for an item. And if that item, oh, it is, oh, I'm sorry, I thought that this was the one that was not approved. Maybe this got approved since I last presented on it. Well, this is approved, so even better. So Metaverse is already approved. All right. At the bottom of my slide, and yes, I am going to share this with you later, but I have some content I want to share that I will share these slides with you after. There are links to everything that I'm referring to at the bottom of the slide. So when you go into these items here, if you just look in the speaker notes, I've got links to most of them. So there's the link to Metaverse, Tour Creator. Oh, where did my link go? I'll drop that in there for you. I thought I had Tour Creator in here. Let me drop that. All right. So those are just a few quick tools that you can use to give your students augmented and immersive reality experiences. All right. So Metaverse is they claim that they're the #1 augmented reality platform. So let's take a look at some ways that teachers were using these in CPS schools, and then we'll talk about where we can go in the future. So at CPS, we had teachers say, yes, they can. They gave their students the ability to create and experiment using these tools. But first, really what the teachers had to do is say, yes, I am willing to see what happens when. So we're willing to open the doors to possibilities and open the doors to failure. We can learn a lot through failing. All right, so we did have a lot of work with our Class VR headsets, which again, those are augmented and virtual reality tools because they can be fully immersive, so that gives the virtual environment, but they can also have an overlay component. They also have a cube you can hold in your hands. So, so that's our Class VR kit. Now, Class VR has a component called Thinglink added to it, and you do not have to have VR to use the Thinglink side of the Thinglink tool. So let me go, whoops, I'm going out of order here. Let me show you that, show that. All right, I'll leave up our approved software list. Super excited about Metaverse because I thought that wasn't approved yet. Closing out Quiver version. All right, it is approved. Thinglink, here we go. All right, so Thinglink is a tool you can use to create unique experiences with interactive images, videos, and 360 media. So I just recently took a little vacation trip. I was in this beautiful mountain lake area and used a GoPro to get a 360 shot of the scene. So I can now take that back and upload it into Thinglink, or upload it into my class VR if I wanted it in the headset. And then I can start to overlay facts, statistics, things like that. So I want to be able to go into details about some of these, but for right now, I'm just going to show you the tool, a quick example of what you can do with it, and then I'll get into some examples in a moment. All right, so that's Thinglink. So Thinglink is another tool where we can create those augmented and virtual learning experiences. We can pair it up with a set of VR goggles, but again, it's not necessary. Another tool, oh, there's the Thinglink one. Here we go. I went out of order. Metaverse, Thinglink. And there's the link to Thinglink. I think I put, yeah, there's Metaverse. All right, just making sure you have the right links. Okay. So we looked at Thinglink, Metaverse, Quiver version, Quiver Vision, sorry, Tour Builder. These are all tools that you can start exploring now. And I was going to say most are approved, but it looks like all of those are approved. And now I want to get into another tool for building that a lot of teachers overlook. They think of it as just for 3D printing, and it's certainly not. It's for 3D design, and that is in Tinkercad. So here's a quick view of some elf furniture that Drew Warndorf had her students build. And you can see the paperclip on the footstool there of the chair. And that was students created elf furniture in Tinkercad to be scaled up to human size in math class next week. So if students are designing a 3D object, okay, like the elf furniture, then in math, they're going to scale it up to human size. What are they going to do with that? Well, let's take a look at an idea. What they could do is design it in Tinkercad, and then they could review it. Now, again, that child is wearing a pair of VR goggles. There is a tool called Merge Cube that can be held in your hand that does not require goggles. These things do require either a phone or an iPad, tablet to be able to view, but that's for Merge Cube. So her students are using the class VR Cube. You could totally do this with Merge, but you could take the item that you design in Tinkercad and then pull it in an augmented or virtual way into that space and look at that object and actually hold it in your hand prior to printing it out. So if we look back here, Drew's students designed and printed this elf furniture. Jessica's students designed and viewed their prints before they printed them. Now, we can tie this all together with her project here. We can take the elf furniture idea and the scaling up, and we can scale it up in math class. But wouldn't it be more cool to see it scaled up? Well, we can do that in tools like CoSpaces. And CoSpaces is an awesome tool. I've got a link to another presentation that I saw at the Future of Educational Technology conference. This presenter, you can click on her presentation materials right there. Gave a presentation on how to use AR and VR in the classroom. But if we take Drew Warndorf's idea of the elf furniture that we designed in Tinkercad, we pull it into an augmented space to view, hold, and manipulate. And then we go into a place like CoSpaces, pull that file in, scale it up. Then students could actually look around and view and feel as though they're in that environment. That's sort of tying it all together. CoSpace is another awesome application you can check out for augmented and virtual reality in the classroom. Now, in the classroom doesn't have to mean that we're all in the same physical space. They could be working on this at home. They could kick it off in the classroom in the blend environment and continue to work at home. But you definitely want to check out CoSpaces if you're interested in augmented and virtual reality. All right, so there was a little bit more about Drew, and she started shifting using Project CoSpaces and Class VR. So there was just a little bit that she was doing. So those teachers that, if you want to follow some teachers at CPS who've done exceptional things, that's Jessica Hughes, Jess Hugs Steam on Twitter, and then Drew Warndorf was her name, Drew, WARNDORFF. So I would just suggest you follow them on Twitter. So yes, students can create these things, but how did they do that? But at Cincinnati Public Schools, we have a lot of partnerships across our buildings. Oops, sorry, I didn't know that was on. And we have a lot of our schools that have gotten 3D printers through the GE Additive Education Program. So teachers like Drew and like Jessica, they've applied for these grants through these programs, and they got 3D printers in there. But using the tools like Tinkercad to build in, or using CoSpaces to design a virtual space, those aren't tools that you need hardware to do. But a lot of their activities were inspired by this GE program. One thing that Drew did was be one of the first people, and I did speak with people in my AR, VR network across not just the country, but around the world. We had not yet seen rapid prototyping done in the K-12 space. And so I've got just a quick little snip here of what rapid prototyping it is. But essentially, it's taking a design and creating that design in a digital space like Tinkercad, and then using augmented or virtual reality to eyeball the design, to make sure there aren't gaps, to hold it in their hand in a virtual way, and then go back to the drawing board in Tinkercad and continue to enhance and refine that design. So in doing that, what we really did at CPS was introduce, for the first time known to a lot of our education partners, the idea of rapid prototyping using augmented reality in Cincinnati Public Schools. And those items did end up being printed. So Drew was the first teacher that I had the opportunity to work with in the year past, and she was just willing to take a chance, and this might not have worked at all. So I just like this message here, watch your step, but if you do fall, do so fabulously. And so Drew wasn't exactly sure what she was doing, but she was willing to try something new with her students. And she did have a student succeed. That student created, she put out a challenge to her class. They had to create. They actually did not use Tinkercad, but you could use Tinkercad. They used Microsoft 3D Builder. And so you can find that in your Windows 10 devices. They used that, but you could do this all in Tinkercad. They used it to design a donut with a bite taken out of it. And they had to make sure that the donut was going to print all as one object. And so this student was her first student to successfully design in Tinkercad, view it. They did view it with the Class VR viewers, but again, you don't have to have those. View it in an augmented space, refine her design, and then print. And our partners at Polar 3D Printing helped with some of the design troubleshooting they ran into. But this has already taken place, and this was back in May of 2019. So since then, opportunities for our very youngest learners is what we started to explore. So we know that high school, middle school, older students can do all of these really cool things, but what about our very youngest students? All right, if we're talking all the way down to preschool, we've got to look at early childhood development and the stages of cognitive development. And in doing all of this work with taking a concept like designing the donuts, they were not real. They were not in front of us. Maybe we could look at a real donut to get an idea, but that donut design had to be created in this virtual space. Again, hers was Microsoft 3D. I'm going to use Tinkercad as the example. So they could begin to design in Tinkercad, and they could create a new design, and they could start building these donuts. Well, this is all not real. It's happening on the screen. Okay. So if I'm designing that on the screen and then I take that design and I load it into a viewer, then I kind of see it. It's not really there. I could, if it's my phone I'm holding up, I could look at it. I know it's not really there, but I can still refine and make it better. Now, when students do 3D print an object, what does that do for our youngest learners and their ideas about reality? And especially about digital literacy from an early age. So I played around. I wanted to duplicate what Drew did with a very young child. And so this student was 3 years old. Looks like some scribbling going on the screen. We went into the models and the child selected a fish. And so they created this image. Well, that image can be manipulated, dragged around, and that image could also be downloaded and uploaded into a way to either add it to a merge cube or view it in an AR way. that child happened to be my 3-year-old grandson, who's a CPS preschool student at Woodford Paideia this year. And so we just played around with building this. But it really got us to wondering, what are we going to do if we help students, if we empower students from a very young age with what they are doing on the screen, and then what I do on the screen, I can transition to something that I can virtually or in an augmented way hold in my hand. It's not really there. But then what if we do 3D print it? What if we make that object real? Well, it got us having a really awesome conversation, and this was not just in our district, but with networks across our whole country, about the idea of, could we impact students' understanding of digital permanence, of our digital footprint, if we give them opportunities to play with creating and designing 3D, and then seeing that 3D object in a way, in that augmented or virtual way that's not actually in their hands. Whoops. Right here. And then maybe even getting to the point of printing that out. So we could print out that fish. So the child could go from the item not being there to creating the item in a digital space to viewing it in an augmented way, and then finally actually holding the object in their hand if it gets printed. So could we impact students' understanding from a younger age of object permanence in a digital space? And would that impact how young learners interact on the web and understanding that these things are real, that when I have something going on the internet, that it's real? So this got a lot of attention, and some awesome conversations took place around young learners and the development of their development of object permanence and their early understanding of the digital space being a real place. All right, and it was just a lot of fun to practice that with my 3-year-old grandson. All right, so let's take a look at this picture. This is actually pretty, this is a fairly old picture, at least 4 or 5 years old. And this is a traditional classroom hallway. And these students have their iPads, and they are using an app. Actually, at the time this photo was taken, it was called Erasma. It was since purchased by HP Reveal. It was at one point approved. I haven't been able to find it on the approved list, unless maybe it's there now. I'm not going to search for it, but if it's not approved, it'll go back through the approval process. But this is an augmented reality app that can be used to enhance anything, even a simple piece of paper. So if you have your students, maybe they are going to be doing this part-time learning, they're taking something home, they can draw and design, and we can take their pictures and make them AR, augmented reality, trigger points. So you can see this child here, and for this one, I do want to zoom in. So let me go into present mode. You can see this child right here is holding up an iPad, and he's got it pointed at this image here. This image becomes the trigger that actually brings out a video of this child presenting to you what their paper's all about, what their picture is, and what they wrote about. Now, if any of you in this call are early child educators, like I am, you know that students very often have much more in their story than they're able to transfer to print. So giving them the opportunity to be recorded, which you could do through Flipgrid AR, or you could do it through these other apps like Erasma, giving them the opportunity to come to life out of their paper, and students can go and scan those pictures. They can be more engaged with one another's stories. When I was a primary school teacher, my hallways were always filled with my student works of art and their writing samples. From every grade, kindergarten, first, second, third, all of the grades that I taught, I always had my hallways filled with student art and writing. When we add augmented reality layers to that, whether that item is hanging in our physical space in our hallway at school, whoops, I'm getting ahead, or if we go into our Schoology media album and put a picture of that they can scan with their phone or iPad at home. Now I already cleared it out. Where is it? There we go. Or if we add those images from that virtual hallway into our digital space by way of a media album, our students could be interacting with things on the screen in a more engaging way. And so we'd be adding a layer of videos. Remember, augmented is adding a layer to the reality. So in that example, that child, the video is coming out and that child is telling you about their story. Also think for yourself as a professional. You might want to look into AR apps where you could virtually introduce yourself. Now this one is a more avatar based, this is an animated, but you could send home your beginning of the school year letters to parents and families in a both digital and print way, but your print, I'm advocating for this, that we don't send anything else home in print that doesn't have some layer of interaction with it. Now this looks very futuristic, right? I haven't seen any teachers send home something like this to introduce themselves to their students and their families at home yet. But one thing you can do is add QR codes to anything that you're sending home, to either link them straight into your Schoology course or to link them with your YouTube channel. Consider every time you print something that you should have some layer of digital interaction on that physical piece of paper. Otherwise, you've really wasted the piece of paper if you can't extend or enhance that. Now, there's another little trick you can do so that you don't have to create this stuff over and over again, especially at the beginning of the year. If it's your teacher introduction, and then later on, maybe you just want to transfer to your weekly newsletter. You can do things like tinyurl.com, and you can create your own custom tiny URL. I did that with today's slides, and we're going to get there in just a moment. So you can make your QR code always go to your tiny URL, and then you could just update, whether it's a set of Google Slides like this presentation today, or if you make it a PDF and you just update the version. But you could have a QR code that you always use on every piece of paper that you send home, and depending on whatever you've added that week, that link can always stay the same, but what you add to it can always change and grow. So you're not going to have to constantly keep recreating and resending links. I suggest that everyone go ahead and make themselves some sort of Google Slide presentation or PDF, or maybe even a Google folder. You'll keep those in and make your own custom tiny URL. You can also do it with a bit.ly. That's another one. And I will put the tiny URL link in our chat. I'm getting to sharing my slide shortly. Bitmoji classroom slides, yes, I had something pulled up for that. You're not jumping ahead, you are on the right track. I think it's Senna? You're on the right track. I accidentally closed out that Schoology tab. Oh no, it's right, no it's not. It's back here. In my practice sample course, I actually used Clarissa from FCBA, her Bitmoji slide. You could absolutely take that Bitmoji slide. And what I did is I made PDFs and PNG images of it. You can put those in your media album. You can make them interactive. I like PDFs for those because of the load time. Somebody's unmuted. Please make sure you're muted. With the load time of Google Slides, I prefer PDF. But yeah, that would be a great idea to add to, and even those, you could add enhanced layers to that. You could add it so that a video pops up out of it. So in your Bitmoji classroom, it could be that when I click on the computer, my YouTube channel video of the week pops up. And so on a computer space, they click it, it opens YouTube in a new tab. But maybe if they're on a phone and they hover, they can interact with it different ways. It's going to open up the app with the iPad. It just depends on how you set up your links. But that's a great idea. All right, let me make sure I don't have, nope, I'm coming to it. Don't worry, I won't forget. It's actually on the slide. All right. So the thing that I want to kind of end on is just to challenge you to consider how would a more engaging, possibly immersive, or definitely experiential, like I can put my hands on it or I can move about in the space and feel like I'm there, how is that going to impact our English language learners? How is it going to help our children with our exceptional students, like children with autism? What could it do to help calm? I've worked with educators at Silverton. They are Digital Leadership Academy, and we've talked about a virtual relaxation space. Now, again, in light of COVID, we will be shifting the way we do that. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But I just challenge everybody who's either in this call with me now or watching this later on my YouTube channel to consider the implications for students across the board. Our general content that we want them to learn, but also their social and emotional experiences. How English language learners could better connect to content if they get to see and sort of experience it. All right. I'll also encourage anyone in the call to find your PLN, your Professional Learning Network. One of my go-to serves as like a tech mentor for me is Ryan Siemens out at one of our partners from Tierney Brothers. And he has taught me so much about AR and VR solutions. There's actually a link to a presentation that this is a couple years old, but that he went through with me when I was evaluating VR solutions for our district. And then outside of developing your own PLN, I'm sharing with you some folks that I follow, where I've learned the things that I'm sharing with you. And I have to say that these three right here, those are my big three. The Virtual Reality Podcast with James, Stephen, Alex, and Amanda. Awesome podcast to follow. You can follow them on Twitter. Jamie Donnelly, I cannot say enough about this person as a transformational leader in education. She has a new book out by ISTE. So Jamie Donnelly, she is the founder of the hashtag ARVR in EDU, and that is actually her website as well. And then the Ready Learner One, if you want to really level up past the K-12 experience and go into professional development, business, and what can be done, Ready Learner One has links that will just blow your mind. So those are three resources I recommend you follow if you want to continue to develop your understanding of augmented and virtual reality learning for both in-person, blended, or remote learning. I do have this little survey in here that you can take if you would like to. I include it every time I present on AR and VR, and it's simply a quick survey for you to share if you know, well, one, how today's presentation was, but you know, were there any options that you had not previously seen before, or is there an option that you suggest that I didn't include today? And then, like, what should we investigate for? It says VR, AR, XR. XR sort of became an umbrella term for all of this, extended realities. Questions, comments. This is not your closing feedback form, so you don't need to do this. It's just linked in the slides at the end. And yes, it's slide 42. I also have information on the Class VR, the actual immersive solution that we have in our district. We're undergoing some changes. I'm going to get to that in a minute. So there's no kind of hands-on time. We're not doing that right now with COVID. But what we are doing is reimagining what virtual reality headsets look like now in light of this, our new reality. So, so the school setting is not the same, but the tools still exist. So how can we use this to keep our students safe and possibly make it an extended at home activity? It even includes families. So we're looking at that as a possibility this summer. So that's all the information I have for you. The link to my slides is at tinyurl.com, and it's actually Rosemary, HCESC20, because that's the last time I presented these slides, so I thought I'll reuse the same tiny URL. So there is the link to my slides. Marie, oh, okay, you guys are saying hello, good. Is Google Earth considered AR? Yeah, it could be considered AR for sure. Google Earth is, so augmented reality is really just about enhancing, adding a layer to the reality around you. And so Google Earth absolutely does that. As a matter of fact, your GPS is a form of augmented reality because it is showing you locations, traffic issues, suggested restaurants, and all of that is overlaid on the reality. So in theory, yeah, it's an AR app. And whether or not, according to Jamie Donnelly's resource it is, I'm not sure. Now, what I want to do is make sure I get through the rest of these tabs for information. I'm going to take the last 2 minutes, and then I'm going to open up the last 10 minutes for questions. Just want to make sure I didn't skip anything I had queued up to share with you. Guys, I would definitely check out the Merge Cube. That is a really cheap solution. something that you could make as an option, but it gives you the opportunity to, quote, hold anything in your hand. I will say it's a little bit misleading, this picture, because the child holding it is not the one seeing it unless they're wearing merge goggles. But when you hold a merge cube and a phone, it would actually, I don't know if you can see me that well, the merge cube, which I had on my desk and I don't know what I did with it. The merge cube would be in your hand and you'd be looking through the phone or tablet. So just to be clear, this view would only be kind of coming out to you if you were wearing the merge goggles. Or if you did it in a partner activity, maybe a child holds it and their parent holds the cube and the child manipulates the tablet or phone. So just so you're aware of that, they've intentionally cut off the top of their faces there. It works amazing. And if you've never used a merge cube, I would spend a couple of dollars and get yourself one. The app is free. And I did check, it's apparently not on the approved list yet, but it was approved and I did verify that. So it's coming on the approved software list. Check out the merge cube. Follow AR, VR, and EDU. Jessica Hughes and Drew are both in my slide deck. We went over Tour Creator. I will say this too, Jessica Hughes does a STEAM lab elective, a VR elective. And one thing that you could look into exploring to suggest for students as like a club activity, or, obviously we can't make it a requirement. Not all kids have phones, but give them the information they need on getting these cardboard viewers. The kids actually made their own viewers, and so they were able to do the more immersive experience with their parents' phones. And so this was a club that she has. So it's just, she's a really cool educator at Cincinnati Public to follow, and that's Jessica Hughes. Also wanted to show you the slide I had on the hallway coming to life. Sycamore students created an augmented reality hallway museum. I did not have that in my slides. I'll drop that in the chat transcript, which will be on my video, in my video link. So if you want to check out what Sycamore students did to create augmented reality hallways through the school. Now again, pictures of those could always be sent digitally. So anything that happens in the face-to-face can still totally happen at home. When you are doing an AR hallway, the objects in the hallway actually have become the triggers. And as you read more about AR, you'll understand a little bit more. But so, anything can be an AR trigger. This can be an AR trigger. It's actually, Soda Can is the first one I ever created back when it was the Erasma app, but now it's called HP Reveal. All right, we went over the Bitmoji Classroom. TinyURL, cool. So now what I'm going to do is drop this link to this one tab presentation that I had queued up for you guys. Oh, and I'm 2 minutes over my question time. This is just a long list of apps and things that I think I don't have time to share it all with you, but this is a one tab that I have on early, augmented, and virtual learning meeting tabs. Jamie Donnelly's 31 Days of AR and VR and EDU took place in March. So it started prior to COVID. But for those of you with young learners, the Dr. Seuss's ABC app is so cool. And I would love to have had time to go through all these, but I knew ahead of time I wouldn't. So I queued up this one tab for you to share. So I'm adding that now. Additional resources. So first thing I'm going to do is look in the chat to make sure there aren't questions, and then I'm going to invite you to open up your microphones. We would just popcorn out our questions. I'm sure that I didn't cover anything well enough, but I tried to give you inspiration about all the possibilities there are out there to enhance your students' learning experiences, whether you're in person in school or remote learning. All right, slide link shared. Thank you. I don't know if you can see the joy on my face, but really this type of stuff is what fires me up, is transforming the educational experience for our students. And I will tell you time and time again, when I did go out and work with students and bring these tools into their classroom and empower their teachers with how to use them, the engagement, it was 100%. And it was 100% every time. So I encourage you to continue to explore these opportunities. I don't see other questions, so I'm just going to be quiet for a minute and see if you have any to ask.
So Rosemary, this is Sienna. I have a quick question because I've just started I asked about the Bitmoji classrooms before, and I know I can link anything. If I PDF those, are all the links functional?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, they function better as a PDF. Let me show you an example.
I just haven't done it yet. Like it seems like.
So what I did in my suggestion for that, I've got two versions of it. One was from Clarissa. I decided I wanted to take real examples from CPS educators. So I didn't even create my own. I took theirs. With hers, we did a PDF version, and every one of these links, now I don't have every account, but it does open up in a new tab. So it's going to work as expected. Every one of those links works as a PDF. And the reason I recommend PDF over Google Slide is because the load time can take more time than the PDF. But then additionally, if a student is using a tablet or a mobile phone, they have to download the Slides app separately. And we know that downloading additional apps at home has been a barrier. So if you have a PDF, most smartphones can view a PDF and all the links work. And the two that I'm showing you, I did test, and these work on a phone. I tested them on both Android and Apple. If you go into one of the Bitmoji classrooms, that's more of like Dion Edwards at Silverton was created, and you can ignore my Bitmoji. That was actually part of another PD. But he made it a station-based thing where like they come into the virtual classroom. Let me delete mine. And they click go to my seat. Well, that links them to slide 2. So what we had to do to PDF this is actually make a different folder. And then each one did have to be its own slide, but we linked back to the master. And then we did have to make a PDF of each one because PDFs won't hop to slide 2. It'll hop to slide 2 and then force you to open up slides again. So we do have to piece it out. I had a PDA I recorded on that, but the sound quality was horrible, so I wasn't able to publish it.
Yeah, I wondered because I started making virtual libraries of some of the audio like on YouTube for my kids because we won't be able to, I'm an ELA teacher, so they won't get quite as much of that. And so I was trying to figure out how to centralize that. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to repeat that session because I got a lot of really good feedback during it, but the sound quality of the recording, it's not worth putting on YouTube. So it happens sometimes, but I'll probably repeat it. But if you need step-by-step instructions on this, just know that I direct people to create one master of the whole experience, and then you do have to piece out and link it, and then make that PDFs, and PDFs can be updated. So, but that's all part of another presentation.
No.
Is there anybody else in the audience who has a question on augmented or virtual reality uses in remote or blended learning? I know I gave you a lot of information today. I'm going to go ahead and give you your contact hours and feedback form. That's coming now. Thanks, Marie. I really love this stuff. My mission in education is to transform learning experiences. Oh, I did my one tab instead. 1 second. It's really weird. My contact hours form. Here we go. All right, contact hours and feedback. There we go. So if you're completing this form, just remember that if you want to earn contact hours, you do need to put in your employee ID number. If you don't want to put that in, just put an NA. It used to be optional, it's not right now. Our topics that we covered today, we actually covered remote learning strategies because I did focus on the fact that what you can do in the classroom and at home.
How expensive overnight?
Pardon?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. If you can, just go ahead and mute. Thanks. I did cover remote learning strategies, but then you want to scroll all the way down. Please check VR/AR. We did do virtual and augmented reality. So make sure you do remote learning strategies and virtual and augmented reality. Indicate your school. Today, if you can believe it, it is July 1st, and this was a 3 p.m. session. The type of training, if you're here with me live, you joined a virtual PD session. If you're watching this later on my YouTube channel, you viewed a recorded virtual PD. So again, join a virtual PD session. This was a 30-minute to 1 hour. My name is Rosemary Jane, and please rate the training, add any additional questions or comments you have. If you have a question specifically for me, I prefer you send it to me via Google Chat. So that's just general questions about PD. There are also links to our virtual PD offerings, our Tech Talk course, and to our ATM help desk. I do like to point out to everybody, please check the box to send me a copy of my responses. We have well over 6,000 responses on this form at this point, so we can't really answer your questions, but just check the box and get a copy in your email. So with that, oh my goodness, I'm starting to actually get good at ending these fairly on time. I'm at least at 50% now. My YouTube link, sure. Yes, the virtual tours would be amazing in world language classes for our ELL learners, also for social studies, learning about history, geography. I love the virtual tours. And if you guys are like planning trip or daydreaming about your dream trip, I have a dream trip of touring the South Pacific. Try to build a Google tour on that. It's just awesome stuff. All right, my playlists are all here. As long as the recording of this does go through good, which it's only not worth like twice. It will be here on my playlist, and it will be under virtual trainings and professional development. So look for the one with the purple cover. Here is my playlists. All right, guys, it's 4 o'clock on the dot. Forgot I had that alarm on. It's 4 o'clock on the dot, so I'm going to go ahead and end this session. Thank you for attending, and please make sure you fill out your contact hours and feedback form.